Change. How do we handle change? How do we look at change? What is the importance of change when it comes to customers, when we deliver something to the customers? That's what we're going to discuss today as part of the second Agile Principle. Welcome to Scrum Positive. This is Vinod Narayan. Thanks for tuning in. If you've not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. Let me go ahead and read the second Agile Principle. Welcome changing requirements even late in development. Agile process harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. So what it really means, it's pretty straightforward. It says that if you're developing a system, developing something for the customers, and there is a change towards the later part of development. Say that this was a time when we used to find all the requirements, what needs to be done, and then start the development, and then every change is kind of expensive and costly and you're not supposed to do, and every change will cost more. So change, you have to have a change request and all those processes. And so it became very difficult to change certain things. So what Agile is telling you is that we should be able to adapt changes or accommodate changes even late during the development. We should use change or harness change in such a way that it provides competitive advantage for customers. If your customer asks you to build a system, why is the customer asking you to build a system? Let's go to the fundamentals. The customer wants us to build a system because customer thinks that that system is going to help the customer get a competitive advantage over its competitors, which is all within the business environment of the customer. Now, that is changing, which means the way customer is going to get competitive advantage is also going to change. And customer might not know that when you embark on building the system. So somewhere midway, the customer realizes, or you realize that, you know what, the way we are developing, we need to make some changes to it. Now you should have a system in which you should be able to accommodate that changes so that customer doesn't lose the competitive advantage when you finally deliver the system. Now, when you come to Agile and Scrum, you are delivering business value and workable software at end of every iteration. Now we'll come into that. That's a different Agile principle altogether. But there's some interesting observations I've seen from my experience. So say that you're doing a sprint. For those who don't know what a sprint is, it is a time box, 1 week to 4 weeks. The most popular is about 2 weeks. So say that your sprint starts on a Monday and ends the next week on a Friday. So you have the sprint planning, you decide this is the sprint goal, this is the business value you're going to deliver at the end of the sprint, and you start working on it. Somewhere mid-sprint, say 4 to 5 days down the line, someone comes, maybe someone higher up who has the power to make changes to everything in the organization. They come in and say, you know what, you need to change the requirements that you planned for. Now, sometimes this is a very, very interesting thing that happens with an organization. Sometimes this request comes from the product owner or someone who is in charge of the requirements. Or sometimes it comes from a VP level, someone higher up in the organization, someone you cannot really fight back. And if you were to say that, you know what, we cannot accommodate that change, can we wait till the end of the sprint? Now, people who don't understand Agile and Scrum would say, no, we're doing Agile, we can make changes anytime. No, what the principle says is not making change anytime. It is, you should be able to accommodate the change even late in the development. Before Agile, what used to happen is that you get the requirements and everything ready, say in January, and you start developing, and somewhere in April there's a change. You would say, no, it's big. No, we didn't plan for this change. Now, in Agile, what happens is that you're only planning for this, say, 2 weeks iteration or sprint. So any change that you think you want to get done, the sprint is going to end in a few days. When we plan for the next sprint, we will make sure that we'll accommodate this change. But even then, there are some cases where they would say that, okay, right, we cannot do it. So in such cases, interestingly, there's something that we do where we cancel the sprint. Now, canceling the sprint is a pretty bad thing. Sometimes I say pretty bad thing because I don't think that canceling sprint is something that you can do every time a change comes. So as people working in the organization, as people working within the team, as someone managing the team, you need to think, or you need to ask the question, can this change wait till the next sprint? And most of the cases it can, and some cases it can't. So then the question is that, so does that mean that what business value we are trying to deliver as part of this sprint is totally invalid, or doesn't add any value, or has the requirements been completely obsolete and it doesn't make any sense? So in that case, it makes sense to cancel the sprint, because you have worked for 4 or 5 days, but the requirements have completely changed. Even if you develop based on the plan 5 days back, you will spend another 5 days to develop something, and it wouldn't be of any requirement or any need to the customer. So which means that there's no point in developing. And these are rare cases where you kind of cancel the sprint. Now, what is the problem if you start accommodating the changes within the sprint? If you accommodate the changes within the sprint and that becomes a practice, everyone is going to plan for something, and then mid-sprint they're going to say, no, add this more. There are two problems to it. One, if you keep adding to that and make that a practice, you will never be able to deliver something at the end of the sprint. Now, another problem is people will not be very focused during the planning, because people will think, you know what, okay, right, we can plan that, but something changes mid-sprint, we can kind of accommodate it. So when we look at this principle, while we understand that it is important to accommodate change towards the latter part of development, that does not mean that you break the sprint or add something mid-sprint and kind of jeopardize the sprint goal and business value that you've planned to deliver as part of that 2 weeks cycle. So for the 2 weeks, you have to control change without any change, because there's no other way that you can deliver something of value every 2 weeks if you don't control what comes into, what work gets added into the list of activities, what we call the sprint backlog. So the sprint backlog is something that we have for this sprint, and that should remain intact unless, as I mentioned earlier, there is a reason that continuing with the sprint doesn't make any sense. And that's a call that we have to take, and that's a costly call, because you're kind of breaking everything, and the whole process of shifting the entire focus into something else, that is going to impact productivity as well. So this is a conversation that you would have to people who kind of come up with mid-sprint additions. And this is not just with the product owners. There are even developers who would come in and say, oh, now I figure out to do this, I need to do something else. So the effort that you put in pre-planning to planning to kind of refining the stories, refining what needs to be done, the more better you do that, the better you sprint, the smoother your sprint is going to be. And at the end of the day, it's all to make sure there is competitive advantage for the customer. So at a time when change was so costly, change was so difficult, we moved into a situation where within a 2-week sprint, you keep things intact, but you can change anything outside of that sprint. So I think it's important for us to understand, for us to explain to those who come mid-sprint and ask us to change the requirements for the sprint then and there. When I talk about the agile principles, I'll share some of the examples, experiences that I've had. They might be related to the principle, but not exactly as the principle, because many times people would take the principle, people will start to use the principle to their advantage, is what they think is their advantage. And if you add something mid-sprint and you're not able to produce the sprint goal and you are not able to complete the sprint, the effect of it, the impact of it is that you wouldn't be able to deliver the customer's competitive advantage. So if you add something mid-sprint, you kind of jeopardize the principle itself. You work against the principle. It's not working as per the principle. You guys, please subscribe to the channel, and please subscribe to the channel. I'll see you all next Monday. You guys take care. Thank you.